What's good, YouTube? How's everybody doing out there? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Zach, and we're here for some more breakdown.
Oh. Yeah. And
then, Trump or no Trump almost doesn't matter at this point. I think that the tsunami has taken off, and it's uprooting the whole structure of lies that's been carefully constructed for us for decades now.
I got another video on deck here from Dialogue Works. The host Neem is awesome, and this time we got Alex Craner, I believe his name is. He's a Croatian fellow, and this is from about a week and a half ago. It's a really good discussion about Zionism, elites, billionaires here in America, and their connection to elites in general, globalism, and of course the state of Israel. That opening clip, what he was saying about Trump or no Trump, like that's what time it is. That I think we're getting past the point where we're finally understanding that there's greater forces running this two-party system, right? And there's greater forces outside of right and left. Like we've seen Biden and we've seen Trump play the same games with Netanyahu. As a matter of fact, when everyone expected Trump to step in and actually do something, he only proved to be far worse. So without further ado, let's let this roll.
But I think that what's important to recognize here is that the whole Zionist project is much, much bigger than Israel itself. I think that Israel is the tip of the iceberg. The whole project is extremely extensive, and it's going through all the centers of power in the Western societies, in particular, again, London and Washington and New York and so forth.
Okay, so him talking these global centers of power, right? This is classic globalism stuff. This is what they're up to, right? This is why you have incorporated cities that are running the financial world, right? Tied in with Jewish banks and yada, yada, yada. He goes on and breaks this down, man. Pay attention.
This also was partly revealed after the Charlie Kirk assassination, because, again, as Max Blumenthal revealed, there's a whole network of billionaires in the United States who are loyal to Benjamin Netanyahu. And they're loyal to him in a very strange way, almost as though they were made to serve that role. And one of them is Larry Ellison.
Tell us, what is your connection to Israel?
Well, the renewal of the Jewish state is something that I think touches all of us. For 2,000 years, we were a stateless people. And now we have a country of our own, defended by all the brave men and women of the IDF. So anything we can do to support them, who devote their lives for preserving the state of Israel, keeping the people safe, and allowing our state to continue sometimes in very, very difficult situations.
And allowing our state to continue,
Turns out that he's a fanatical Zionist.
Now I'm gonna let you just soak that edit in on your own. I'm not gonna go back and go over my slow-mos or go over his tongue slipping in and out, which is something I just noticed. I didn't even show you any of the freeze frames. There are some really odd freeze frames where his tongue comes out in a really odd shape. And so you guys check that out further if you want to. But that's Larry Ellison right there. That's the guy that we have buying TikTok. What you just heard, that's the dude who's buying TikTok. That's the dude who is buying Paramount Pictures, who owns, I think Paramount Entertainment is the streaming, but it's not just them that they own like HBO, they own a whole rack, CBS. But this is who this is. This is the dude that's now, buying into a huge portion of our entertainment and media market You know, the influencer meeting that Netanyahu just held while he was here in America for the UN and his trip to Washington, you know, that now resulted in people getting $7,000 a post to speak out in favor of Israel, which, let me remind you, everybody, I don't get nothing. I do this stuff for free because I think it's the right thing to do. So a little sub and a like would go a long way.
And that he is one of the biggest donors to the IDF, which is a very strange for a tech billionaire. You know, if you just kind of started your business and became successful and, you know, you made a lot of money, there are many causes you could support in life rather than a military in, you know, is someplace half around the world, right?
You know, there's a whole other story that I heard Fuentes talking about. He was talking about the evaluation of TikTok and the fact that, like, this isn't even being transacted at like a fair market price. Let's just put it that way. So that just shows you how this is even more of a sweetheart deal happening under the structure that I described earlier. The state of Israel uses tied in Jews essentially to take advantage of the strength and size of the American market to become wealthy, and then to channel that wealth back to Israel, meanwhile using the wealth and influence and their status here in America to affect things in America and Israel's favor. And essentially, like, that's what you have going on. The same way that the state of Israel is a settler colony funded by outside sources, these billionaire Jewish elites, Zionists, are not natural billionaires.
Recently hear that many people criticizing Israel, especially after the Gaza operation. How do you feel as someone just saying you love Israel so much?
Well, again, it's a difficult situation, isn't it? To conduct military operations around civilians is very difficult, and
they're not elites. You know, they don't write novels and compose symphonies and sculpt sculptures and build cathedrals. They just parasite off of the whole society.
She believes I'm evil. I believe she's an unwitting product of an evil force, Hamas. That she unwittingly is part of their strategy, that she is a product.
And then use that wealth that they suck off of the society to do completely depraved, degenerate things.
So the primary source of death in Palestine is the fact that Hamas has realized that there are millions and millions of useful idiots that will...
This is why you don't get a platform to speak. Because you are killing my people and you're justifying it. Your AI and your technology from Palantir kills Palestinians!
Mostly terrorists, that's true.
So this leads us into this concept of basically Zionist money being invested into American society in a way that fuels social Marxism, in a way that fuels the breakdown of the American family, and in a way that fuels the breakdown of American culture and society, and 100% will fuel division in any way possible. You know, look at that ultra left that Soros funded is now being used as a fall guy for the destruction of like states and individual rights by the federal government. Oh, we got to come into these cities and take care of, you know, the danger and the threat because you have these crazy left-wing trans people and whoever else they say are terrorists. And you know for sure that if you're speaking out against Israel at this point, you're going to be labeled a terrorist, right? So this is a big part of what this is about, you know, what these people do with the money that they make and the money that goes back and forth between them and the state of Israel. And this is the exact reason why I say the Palestinian issue, I've been saying this for months, and I'm so happy to see like America finally coming around to it. But this is why I've been saying that this is the major issue that will fix our country, because it will allow us to shrug off the Jewish overlords that have their hands and their money all in our government. And hopefully we get the corporate influence out at the same time.
So that's a very interesting thing, because I've also heard recently Larry Ellison in one of these forums. I don't know if it was like a Michael Milken forum or a World Economic Forum in Davos, something like this. He was talking about how all these control matrix technologies are going to ensure that everybody's on their best behavior, meaning, he's completely on board with this World Economic Forum agenda of putting us under complete control and surveillance so that we can't really do anything. We can't protest. We can't even criticize. We have to, be up to date with our vaccine schedules and the boosters and everything. And so this is all part of the same thing.
Next link in the chain, right? He's tying this to the globalists, to the guy wearing the sweater who wanted to put the jabs in you guys, and to the whole World Economic Forum, WEF Agenda 2030, right? This is like huge. So it's not just that these Zionists messing with American society and genociding Palestinian people at will, are messing up our country in that way here, but they're also the ones tied in with the real New World Order and the real globalist agenda that also controls and runs the EU. Thank God the rest of the world's woken up to it. And by large, the BRICS and Global South, they ain't falling for that. But best believe that for us here, that's on our agenda if we don't straighten up.
Your AI and your technology from Palantir kills Palestinians!
Mostly terrorists, that's true.
I have been to Israel. I have been to the border. I have spent time to the people who govern the state of Israel, and I feel a deep emotional connection to the state of Israel and the Israeli people.
So we already see, whose side Mr. Larry Ellison is on, and we can only imagine what's going to happen with TikTok, with him and his people in control of everything. The other fellow you've seen there is Alex Karp, right? Partners, I believe, with Peter Thiel in creation of Palantir. So if you don't know about Palantir, look into it. This Palantir is essentially, it's not data mining, but it's data organization, trained computer programs to analyze all the data that gets mined through the internet, through these social media sites. And it organizes it into digestible data for the purpose of whatever you want it to be. And, the powers that be are using this to target Hamas in Israel, okay? That same technology that the IDF, IOF is using, they're going to use that here in America, right? And ICE probably already is using it here in America.
And it seems to be a relatively small cabal, but they're extremely wealthy and they're extremely powerful.
We have two CEOs at Oracle. One's name is Safra Katz, and she was born in Israel. So again, we love the country of Israel, and we'll do everything we can to support the country of Israel.
But as my investigation into Theranos proved, they're also extremely vulnerable because truth tellers like Max Blumenthal, like Tucker Carlson, and the like, Dave Smith, these people have the power to collapse them. And I've demonstrated that in the investigation of the way Theranos collapsed. It was this massive, seemingly invincible enterprise that collapsed because just a handful of ordinary people inside of the enterprise wouldn't shut up and continued to speak out and tell the truth in spite of the fact that they were discouraged, intimidated, pursued, one of them to the point of committing suicide. But they prevailed nevertheless, and the thing collapsed. And I think that Theranos is the small fractal of the bigger structure that's going to collapse in the same way, because there are brave people, there are courageous people who are continuing to tell the truth.
I think that's a pretty easy concept, man. That don't take too much explaining, right? Like, it's clear we're being censored left, right, center. We saw this heavy with COVID. It went away in some ways, stayed around in some ways. But now I think it's clear to see that it was all preparatory for this moment to be censoring any truth coming out about the genocide, so the greater Israel project can be carried out and fulfilled with our silent consent and support, right? That's what this is about. So please, anyone watching this, nobody watches my stuff. I'm a very small channel, but I would really, really, really appreciate it if you share my stuff out there. Give me a sub, give me a like if you come across this and this resonates with you, because like I said earlier in the video, man, I do this for free. I do this because I can afford to in my life at this moment. Buddy, all the news is just a packaged narrative. So I can promise, with my stuff here, I'm as American as you can get, right? And there's no left, right, center anymore. It's us versus them. I hope you guys can see which side I'm on. So that's it, man. It's up to us telling the truth. It's up to us to spread the truth. And if we sit here on our hands and just eat what they feed us, we're going to just continue down this wrong path.
The change is bubbling under the surface in Europe as well, but in a very powerful way. People are longing for traditional values. People are longing for safe neighborhoods, prosperity, good jobs, sense of security, and so forth. And they see that everything that is being done to them by this parasitic imperial class is actually turning them into serfs, into slaves. It's making their towns and cities and neighborhoods insecure. It's causing them to lose jobs. I will just give you two quick examples from my country, from Croatia. So the destruction of the livestock is off the charts, and they keep making justifications. Oh, there's this virus, now there's that virus, and they always have some kind of a reason. But the result is that they're destroying the livestock in tens of thousands of numbers. And so people are seeing, not only are the farmers being crushed and destroyed, the regions that cover the farmland in Croatia is being emptied out of population. And people ask themselves, why? What for? Why are you doing all this? And they're realizing that they're running out of food, that there might be a day when there's not going to be any food in the supermarket, and people are getting nervous.
To my fellow Americans, like, you guys can relate to that. I know you can remember during COVID and around that time, shortly after, when they were attacking our food supply here in America. It was the same thing that he was just talking about there going on in Europe. It would be, meat packing plants, or they had to slaughter so many chickens or cows, or crops destroyed. I mean, it was just one thing after another for a good while. What this is this is globalist stuff. This is the globalist agenda here. If you see, these plans are being carried out everywhere in the world that is under control and influence of the globalists. In the global south, or in the BRICS nations, I highly doubt that they're destroying their own food supplies, right? These are common themes that are happening in Western nations. And that's, like I said earlier in the video, that us here in the West, we're still, we still got the globalist agenda on deck.
And so what the Croatian people see, the Italian people, the German people, the French people, the Spanish people, they all see the same. And the anger and the revolt is gathering strength. And then you have these leaders like Friedrich Merz and Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer and the like, who are so extremely unpopular, they're really sitting on very thin ice. And so to stay in power, they're obliged to cancel democracy. They're obliged to interfere with people's will in every way conceivable, just to make sure that we cannot change course and that we cannot turn the situation around.
He also talked about elections being rigged, right? We just saw this in in Romania, I believe, and other countries in the EU. That's I mean, geez, they just killed all these AfD politicians in Germany. There's questions about our elections here in the United States, you know, like, this is the group that are doing things like this, you know, anywhere else around the world, right? If, you know, the West says that Maduro, say the election for him, or Putin's election, right? If anyone else has a democratic election in their country, but we disagree with it, well, then all of a sudden it's not democratic anymore. And if you listen to the globalist leaders in the West, they'll just keep redoing elections over and over again until they get their result to stick, man. And that, like, is not democracy at all, dude. So again, the important thing is that all this is tied to the Zionist elite and the cause of Israel. These are all one and the same, right? That's the point of this video, and it's really, really, really important to take hold of.
At the same time, I see that there are covert influences that are coming from the East. So apparently there are, you know, significant investments coming from places like China into European countries. And I cannot say this as a fact because I don't know, but it's just my impression and my judgment. They're not there just investing money and making business. I think that they're seeking to purge the system of these parasites, to help us overthrow them and take control of our own countries.
The last point here for this part is where he goes on to talk about these other BRICS nations investing in European economies. And he was saying that they're doing it for the purpose of wanting to help us root out these parasites from our governments and our societies. And I believe that that's like a legit thing. If you look at really the BRICS movement, the movement of the non-aligned nations, the global south, all these different groups and countries that are beginning to operate outside of our sphere of influence, they're all for equality. They're setting up a multipolar world, and a world where, you know, hopefully can exist without neocolonialism and imperialism, right? And that's the point of that. And I really believe they would like nothing more. They don't want to step into our countries and take them over, you know, but they would surely love for a sane group of Americans to come to power here in our country and in all the other countries in the West, and come to the international diplomatic table with like some sense of cooperation and wanting to exist instead of just fight nonstop wars and exploit everyone, right? These people in the rest of the world are looking for a peer-to-peer relationship, not a master-subordinate relationship like the neo-colonial situations that we like to put everyone else in the world in, with us as the master. So this is important stuff, man. This is big stuff, and all this stuff is happening in the world around us, whether you believe it, know it, believe it, or not. All these countries are like ready to function without us and are already doing so economically, man. And we'll see here in America. You watch how our economy goes. It's coming. And then this is just a little bit of Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is one of the only people that we have in our government at this point that's, you know, trying to do anything for America first. Politicians like her are the only ones that can stay around after we do what we need to do.
Israel bombed a Catholic church in Gaza. and that an entire population is being wiped out as they continue their aggressive war in Gaza. My amendment would strike $500 million in funding for nuclear-armed Israel's missile defense system. The U.S. already provides Israel with $3.8 billion annually in foreign aid. $3.8 billion, that's a lot of money. Additionally, the April 2024 security supplemental included $8.7 billion for Israel. Even though Israel, nuclear-armed Israel, has universal health care for their citizens and subsidized college for their citizens. They're able to provide that. However, here in America, we're $37 trillion in debt. My amendment will ensure an America First Department of Defense, and that is exactly what we need and we haven't had for a very long time.
So that's it for the video, man. If you're sticking around, you watched it to this long, thank you so much, man. God bless. I hope some of that stuff resonated and hit the mark with you. I hope you find it worth sharing. And I appreciate all your support, man. Help the channel grow. I really, really appreciate any likes, subs, and shares at this point. So the last bit of the video here is Alex and Nima talking a bit more in depth about his Theranos investigation. For any of you guys that are watching and you're into this globalist thing, you want to know more about this, check this last bit of the video out. And that part of their discussion is quite insightful and probably can lead you down a rabbit hole, but it's certainly linked to everything that's happened, COVID and then till now, right? And that's the point of this video, is to bring all these things together and all under the same umbrella as the Zionist elites. They're the same people that were doing all those things during the COVID times to us. And they want to use AI technology just to watch every single thing that we do. And boy, if you're anti-Israeli, then you're a terrorist. Scary stuff. God bless everybody. See you on the next one. Peace.
And then, Larry Ellison also features in an investigation that I have done myself over on the subject of the company called Theranos, which I don't know if you'll remember, but Theranos was about 20 years ago. It was a really big deal. It was a company run by a very young American woman called Elizabeth Holmes. And Elizabeth Holmes was supposedly the inventor of some kind of a revolutionary diagnostics device, which could accurately diagnose something like 120 different diseases from just a little droplet of blood taken from your finger. Well, I looked into that, and the whole thing was a fraud from day one. The technology never worked. She was never qualified to run it. The whole thing was an extremely bizarre Silicon Valley bubble that crashed from the valuation of $9 billion to zero in a very short time. But the curious thing is that Elizabeth Holmes's mentor and one of her biggest financial backer was none other than Larry Ellison again. And her entire board of directors were people from the security state, nobody from the medical field. It was people like Henry Kissinger, sorry, the name escapes me, but there was General Mattis, George Shultz, Sam Nunn, who was head of the Armed Services Committee in the Senate. So very, very powerful people in the deep state, in the military-industrial complex, in the security state and intelligence services. Nobody from any medical or diagnostics field. And this girl had no clue about anything. And there you have Larry Ellison again, the arch Zionist. And then as I completed my investigation, it turned out that this whole Theranos thing was the preparation, very probably, it wasn't explicitly stated, it was very probably the creation of an information weapon for future pandemics that were going to be wielded against all of humanity everywhere around the world, because their objective was to be able to test 20% of the whole population weekly. So the Zionist Project, World Economic Forum, City of London, because Larry Ellison is also very close with Tony Blair, Mr. City of London, in addition to being close to Benjamin Netanyahu. And so this all seems to come together, and it always revolves around the very same cabal.
Do not become a product of an ideology that sounds sensible.